Have you ever dealt with someone who made you question your own reality? Someone who could charm a room full of strangers but leave you feeling utterly worthless behind closed doors? Maybe it was a parent, a romantic partner, a boss, or even a friend. You're not alone, and what you experienced wasn't your fault. Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of narcissists, uncovering the hidden mechanisms behind their behavior, and most importantly, giving you the tools to protect yourself. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening in the narcissistic mind, why they do what they do, and how to break free from their toxic patterns. This isn't just psychology theory. This is practical knowledge that could change your life. Let's get started. Narcissism exists on a spectrum. We all have some narcissistic traits, like wanting recognition or feeling proud of our achievements. That's normal and healthy. But narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is something entirely different. It's a clinical condition characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a profound lack of empathy for others. Here's what makes NPD distinct. People with this disorder have an inflated sense of their own importance. They believe they're special and unique, deserving of exceptional treatment. They fantasize about unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. They require excessive admiration and have a strong sense of entitlement, expecting favorable treatment and automatic compliance with their expectations. They're interpersonally exploitative, taking advantage of others to achieve their own ends. They lack empathy and are unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. They're often envious of others or believe others are envious of them. And they show arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. But here's the paradox that confuses most people. Beneath this grandiose exterior lies an extremely fragile self-esteem. The narcissist's confidence is like a balloon, constantly needing air to stay inflated. Without regular validation and admiration, it deflates rapidly. This is why narcissists are so sensitive to criticism, even perceived slights that most people would brush off. A minor comment can trigger what's called narcissistic injury, leading to rage, withdrawal, or vindictive behavior. The prevalence of NPD is estimated at around 1% of the general population, though many experts believe it's significantly underdiagnosed because narcissists rarely seek treatment. Why would they? In their mind, they're not the problem. Everyone else is. It's more common in men than women, with some studies suggesting a ratio of about 75% male to 25% female, though this gap may be narrowing. The disorder typically emerges in early adulthood, though the roots are planted much earlier in childhood. What causes narcissism? Research points to a complex interplay of genetic predisposition and environmental factors. Some narcissists were excessively pampered as children, constantly told they were superior to others, creating an unrealistic self-image they carry into adulthood. Others experience the opposite: neglect, abuse, or unpredictable parenting that prevented them from developing a stable sense of self. They constructed a false, grandiose self as a defense mechanism against deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and shame. There's also evidence of neurobiological factors, with some studies showing differences in brain structure and function, particularly in areas related to empathy and emotional regulation. Understanding the etiology helps us recognize that while narcissists cause real harm, they're also, in a sense, trapped in a prison of their own psychology. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps explain why change is so difficult for them. To truly understand narcissists, you need to understand their psychological defense system. It's like an elaborate fortress built to protect a wounded inner child who never learned healthy emotional regulation or developed a cohesive sense of self. The cornerstone of this system is what psychologists call the false self. The narcissist creates an idealized version of themselves, a persona that's perfect, powerful, superior, and beyond reproach. This false self is what they present to the world, and they become heavily invested in maintaining this illusion. Meanwhile, the true self, the authentic person with normal vulnerabilities, imperfections, and emotional needs, gets locked away in a psychological dungeon because it's associated with unbearable shame and inadequacy. Narcissists employ several key defense mechanisms to protect this fragile system. Projection is a big one. They attribute their own unacceptable feelings, thoughts, or traits to others. If they're feeling insecure, they'll accuse you of being insecure. If they're being dishonest, they'll call you a liar. If they're having inappropriate thoughts, they'll accuse you of infidelity. It's a way of externalizing their internal discomfort and avoiding self-awareness. Splitting is another crucial mechanism. Narcissists see the world in black and white. You're either all good or all bad, idealized or devalued, with them or against them. There's no middle ground, no nuanced perspective. This is why relationships with narcissists follow such predictable patterns of love bombing followed by devaluation. When you're meeting their needs and providing narcissistic supply, you're perfect, placed on a pedestal. The moment you fail to do so, set a boundary, or show any independence, you become worthless in their eyes, knocked off that pedestal with shocking speed. Denial allows narcissists to reject reality when it contradicts their self-image or narrative. They'll rewrite history, gaslight you about what actually happened, and genuinely believe their own distortions. It's not always conscious manipulation, though it can be. Their defense system is so powerful that they actually perceive reality differently, filtering everything through the lens of protecting their false self. Rationalization helps them justify their harmful behavior. They always have an excuse, a reason why their actions were necessary, understandable, or why you deserve the treatment you received. Personal accountability is virtually impossible for someone with NPD because accepting genuine fault would puncture their grandiose self-image and flood them with the shame they've spent a lifetime avoiding. Devaluation serves multiple purposes in the narcissist's psychological economy. It allows them to discard people without guilt, maintains their sense of superiority, and prevents the vulnerability that comes with genuinely valuing someone else. If they can convince themselves you're worthless, they don't have to face the pain of their own emptiness or the risk of being abandoned first. Let's examine what drives narcissists in their connections with others. At the core of every interaction is their need for what psychologists call narcissistic fuel, the steady stream of admiration, recognition, validation, and attention they require from people around them to keep their self-image intact and manage their unstable sense of worth. Rather than viewing you as a complete individual with your own needs and feelings, they essentially see you as someone who fulfills a specific role in supporting their emotional needs. This fuel comes from different sources. The main source typically includes romantic partners, family members, or close connections who offer regular, deep engagement and affirmation. These relationships provide the most potent form of validation they seek. The secondary source includes casual acquaintances, work colleagues, online connections, and social contacts who provide occasional recognition or serve as an audience for their accomplishments. Those with narcissistic traits often juggle multiple relationships across both categories at once. These relationships tend to unfold in 3 distinct stages. The initial stage involves intense pursuit and idealization. During this period, the individual appears exceptionally charming, considerate, and almost perfect. They lavish you with compliments, thoughtful gestures, presence, and undivided focus. They reflect back your own passions and beliefs, creating the sensation that you've discovered someone uniquely compatible, someone who truly understands you at a profound level. The pace accelerates quickly, with rapid movement toward deeper commitment and closeness. This overwhelming idealization forms a strong emotional connection that draws you in powerfully. It feels euphoric and consuming, which is precisely the intention. They're establishing an emotional high point that becomes the standard you'll later chase. The second stage brings a dramatic shift toward criticism and diminishment. After your emotional investment is secure, after you've committed yourself to the connection, changes begin to surface. Critical remarks emerge, starting small and disguised as humor or constructive feedback, then growing more pointed and frequent. They minimize your accomplishments, highlight your vulnerabilities, and draw unflattering contrasts between you and others from their past. You might experience prolonged silences, withdrawal of warmth and intimacy, or outright disregard for your boundaries. They might show interest in others publicly, overlook significant occasions, or characterize your feelings as excessive reactions. The individual who previously elevated you now demonstrates disdain, You find yourself confused, constantly cautious, desperately attempting to return to those early days, analyzing what changed. This unsettled state serves their purpose. You become uncertain, constantly seeking their validation, easier to influence. The final stage involves separation or abandonment. When you're no longer meeting their emotional requirements, when you've established too many limits, when they've identified someone new to pursue, or when maintaining the facade becomes too demanding, they may end things with startling coldness. Years of shared history, commitments, and memories can dissolve into apparent apathy. They might vanish without explanation, pursue others openly, or declare their feelings were never genuine. In some cases, they maintain minimal contact while exploring other options, keeping you accessible as a fallback. Certain individuals never completely sever ties. Instead, they attempt to draw you back in when alternative sources become unavailable or when they need reassurance, repeating the entire cycle from the beginning. Recognizing this repeating pattern matters tremendously because it reveals an essential truth. The shift from idealization to criticism wasn't triggered by anything you did or failed to do. This progression was inevitable from the start. It represents their established behavioral pattern, completely separate from your value as a person. Narcissists are master manipulators, and understanding their tactics is essential to protecting yourself and maintaining your sanity. Gaslighting is perhaps their most insidious tool. They systematically deny your reality, telling you that things you clearly remember never happened, or happened completely differently than you recall. They call you crazy, too sensitive, dramatic, or unstable when you react to their mistreatment. They might move your belongings and insist you misplace them, deny saying things you clearly heard, or rewrite entire conversations to paint themselves favorably. Over time, this persistent denial of your reality makes you doubt your own perceptions, memory, and sanity. You become easier to control when you can't trust yourself, when you're constantly second-guessing your own mind. Triangulation involves bringing a third person into the dynamic to manipulate you and create insecurity. They might constantly mention an ex, comparing you unfavorably, or suggesting the ex was more attractive, successful, or understanding. They flirt with someone in front of you, then tell you you're paranoid when you object. They relay supposed criticisms from others. Your friend said you've been acting strange lately, creating doubt and isolation. They pit people against each other, telling different stories to different people to create drama and maintain control. This creates jealousy, insecurity, and competition for their attention. You're kept off balance, working harder to prove your worth and secure your position. Narcissists are experts at playing the victim. No matter what they've done, they'll twist the narrative to make themselves the injured party deserving of sympathy. They provoke you deliberately until you react, then point to your reaction as evidence of your instability or abusiveness. They recount stories where they're always the hero or the martyr, never acknowledging their role in conflicts or their impact on others. This victim stance serves multiple purposes. It garners sympathy and supply from others, deflects accountability, and makes you feel guilty for holding them responsible. The silent treatment and intermittent reinforcement are powerful control mechanisms rooted in behavioral psychology. By unpredictably withdrawing and then restoring their attention and affection, they create an addictive dynamic similar to gambling. You never know which version of them you'll get, so you're constantly trying to figure out the right combination of behaviors to earn the good version. You're essentially trained like a laboratory animal, walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid the punishment of their withdrawal and earn the reward of their approval. This creates a trauma bond that can be incredibly difficult to break. Narcissists also engage in what's called DARVO, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. When confronted about their behavior, they follow this predictable pattern. First, they deny any wrongdoing, often with righteous indignation. Second, they attack your character, credibility, or motivations for bringing it up. Third, they flip the script entirely to make themselves the victim of your accusations, your sensitivity, or your alleged mistreatment of them. It's disorienting and often effective at shutting down accountability and making you apologize for even bringing up the issue. Other common tactics include future faking, making promises about the future they have no intention of keeping to string you along, hoovering, sucking you back in after a discard with apologies, promises to change, or reminders of good times. Smear campaigns, spreading lies about you to others to control the narrative and isolate you. And financial abuse, controlling money to create dependency and limit your options. If you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, you need to understand that what you experienced was real abuse, even if there were no physical injuries. Narcissistic abuse causes genuine psychological damage that can persist long after the relationship ends. Many survivors develop symptoms of complex PTSD, including hypervigilance and being constantly on edge, emotional flashbacks where certain triggers transport you back to abusive moments, difficulty trusting others or yourself, and a profoundly damaged sense of self-worth. You might experience anxiety, depression, or physical symptoms like insomnia, headaches, or digestive issues. You might find yourself ruminating constantly, trying to make sense of what happened, or struggling with cognitive dissonance between the person they pretended to be and who they actually were. The first step in recovery is education. Learning about narcissism, understanding the cycle and tactics, helps you understand that their behavior wasn't your fault and wasn't about your worth as a person. It was about their disorder and their need for supply. This knowledge is incredibly validating after being gaslit for so long, after being told everything was your fault. It helps you reclaim your reality and trust your perceptions again. Establishing safety is crucial. If possible, go no contact, cutting off all communication with the narcissist. This includes blocking them on all platforms, avoiding places you might run into them, and being prepared for hoovering attempts. If you must maintain contact due to co-parenting or other obligations, practice the gray rock method. Become as boring and unresponsive as possible, like a gray rock. Give them nothing to work with emotionally. Respond only to necessary logistics in brief, unemotional language. Don't defend yourself against provocations. Don't explain your feelings, and don't provide any supply whatsoever. Working with a therapist who understands narcissistic abuse is invaluable. Not all therapists are trained in this area, and well-meaning but uninformed therapists might give advice that's counterproductive, like suggesting couples counseling, which is generally not recommended with narcissists. Look for someone who specializes in trauma or narcissistic abuse recovery. They can help you process the trauma, identify and change patterns that made you vulnerable, rebuild your self-esteem, and develop healthier relationship patterns. Many survivors benefit from trauma-focused therapies like EMDR, somatic experiencing, or internal family systems. Reconnect with yourself. Narcissistic abuse often leaves you completely disconnected from your own needs, feelings, identity, and values because you are so focused on managing the narcissist's emotions and maintaining the relationship. Rediscover your interests, your passions, what brings you joy, explore your values and what matters to you, not what you think should matter. Practice self-compassion and challenge that harsh inner critic that sounds suspiciously like the narcissist. Remember, you were targeted not because you're defective, but because you have qualities the narcissist lacked: empathy, authenticity, loyalty, and the capacity for genuine connection. Build or rebuild a support system of people who validate your experiences and support your healing. Narcissists often isolate their victims, convincing you that friends and family don't understand or that you're being disloyal by discussing the relationship. Reconstructing your social network is both healing and protective. Consider joining a support group, online or in person, where you can connect with others who've had similar experiences. Set boundaries in all your relationships. Learn what healthy boundaries look like and practice enforcing them. Understand that boundaries aren't about controlling others, they're about honoring and protecting yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to have needs. It's okay to walk away from relationships that don't serve you. Be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear. You'll have good days and bad days. You might find yourself missing the narcissist, not the real person, but the fantasy they sold you during love bombing. That's normal and doesn't mean you should go back. Recovery takes time, often longer than the relationship itself, but it is absolutely possible. You can rebuild your life, reclaim your identity, and develop the healthy, reciprocal relationships you deserve. Understanding the psychology of narcissists is genuinely empowering. It helps you recognize these patterns early, protect yourself from manipulation, set appropriate boundaries, and heal from past wounds. If this video resonated with you, I want you to know you're not alone. Millions of people have experienced narcissistic abuse, and recovery is not only possible but probable with the right support and information. I want to hear from you in the comments. What was your biggest takeaway from this video? Have you experienced these patterns in your own life? What helped you in your healing journey? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found this helpful, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps this content reach more people who need it. Subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss future content on psychology, mental health, narcissism, and personal growth. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to protecting yourself from manipulation and abuse. Check out the resources I've linked in the description below for books, websites, and hotlines that can provide additional support. Remember, you deserve relationships built on mutual respect, genuine empathy, authentic connection, and reciprocity. Don't settle for anything less. Your worth isn't determined by how a narcissist treated you. You are valuable, you are worthy of love, and you have the strength to break free and build the life you deserve. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.